Hello YouTube, this is Tycooner Steve, and welcome to episode 2 of Re-Arc, the recently extinct animal recovery center. Recovery, yes, that's the word for it. This is episode 2, and today we are going to be starting by making an exhibit for dodos. So in case you skipped the first episode, I'll just briefly let you know what's going on. The idea with this park is that we're going to be focusing on some recently extinct animals. We're definitely going in the extinct pile, but we're not going way back to the Cretaceous for dinos or anything like that. We're going to try to focus on animals that were actually around at the same time Homo sapiens were. That's kind of be my cutoff. They have to have interacted with modern human beings at some point in time. But I thought dodos were a good way to start, both because they are in the vanilla. No, they're not in the vanilla Suit Tycoon. They're in the Extinct Animals expansion pack, so it's something that everyone would get. I am using the Radical Remake look for them, however, so it's going to look a little bit nicer. But I thought that would be a good sort of stand-in for the rest of the zoo. Kind of a again, a word is escaping me here, but representative. That's not quite the right word, but I'm going to go with it. Representative of the kind of animals we want to do at this zoo. So we're going to go right ahead and put it down. And I'm actually very pleased with the way this turned out. I went with this mid-level cable fence here. I thought it gave us a good look at the animals. You could clearly see through it without really getting in the way too much. I'm not super duper pleased with that, but you can see here I experimented around with a few different kind of fences trying to find exactly which one I wanted, but ultimately I did settle for that mid-level cable fence. I think is probably the best bet for this kind of exhibit. And you can see here I've kind of already outlined the path and where I wanted to go, and I've put in this area here that's supposed to be like a closer viewing area where the guests can get right up front, and I'm going to be filling this in with glass. It's going to take me a few experiments to figure out exactly how I want to do that. Like right now I think it's too close, so I'm actually going to back it away to make it so that the dodos themselves will have more room. And you'll see I'm just kind of tweaking around the edges. But I ended up being really happy with this, because instead of like making it an actual structure, like a building area where there's like a roof and everything, what I'm actually going to end up doing is just kind of suggest an area there by building not only the glass up front where you can go up and see the dodos, but just putting a back wall in that one specific area, and I think that came out really well. I'm really happy with that. And here we go. And you can see I'm putting down, this is something I've been doing more and more lately, is if I have an inside area for like the animals to rest in, instead of just leaving it as a dirt area, I'm starting to just put down the cement path there. I think it just gives that add a little touch of realism that I do like so much. And ultimately, oh, okay, I forgot I had done this. It's been a few days since I did the actual work here. Between that and recording the audio for it, I just kind of got caught up. I actually went on vacation. It was pretty cool. But I decided that I wanted to use a different path from the one we're using in that main entrance area, just to kind of suggest that you are sort of entering the main part of the zoo, make it a little bit different. And so I ultimately ended up going with the dirt path. I try to pick pathways that have both the rounded and the straight edges, so that way I can custom fit it as best as possible. It does limit my choices sometimes, so I'm not sure that's the best policy, but it helps my little need to get this as straight and even as possible and make everything line up as much as can. So we'll go ahead here and just paint in the dirt. And I tend to, when I'm making these exhibits, try to put down the animal's food first. I think building around that and making sure that after you get the food down, that you're not putting in anything that would create like hitbox issues was pretty big. I actually ended up forgoing the dodo rock, which seems kind of weird now that I look back on it. If you don't know, the dodo rock is just an enrichment item that the dodos like to stand on and kind of like flap their wings and look happy. It's pretty cool, although I just felt like I didn't have enough room here. And you can see I'm also doing this area behind here. If you remember from episode 1, that's the entrance here to our bathrooms. I like the idea, since I was separating the sort of exhibit part of the zoo from the front end, of just kind of putting in some buffer zones there where I just put that fence I really like, that white fence with the wooden tops, and then filling it in with the juniper bushes and small birch trees to kind of make it almost not quite a block everything out, but just kind of make it so that it does seem like it's a completely different area of the park. And now I'm setting down these sticks. These are actually the sticks that are enrichment objects for the beavers in the Zoo Tycoon pack. If you just set them down like that, I think it looks pretty cool, and I was trying to sort of give this wild, more primitive setting. That's why I'm also putting these flowers kind of at every other step, so that you can still see those logs clearly. Not 100% sure this is the best way to go, but I like the idea of just kind of playing around with these flowers a little bit. They look really, really good. And I probably don't use them enough, so that was just my thought there, is I could use those flowers and those sticks. They just kind of suggest like we're entering a wooded or forest area, which is kind of odd. Dodos actually live, I forget the name of the island, or I should say dodos lived, and I forget the name of the island chain, but it was in the Indian Ocean and not very large islands, so I don't know if they were, I've never been there obviously, I don't know if they were supposed to be like heavy, densely forested. I just know that Portuguese sailors used to stop there a lot on trading missions, and dodos were very, very easy to catch and eat, and that's one of the reasons we unfortunately don't have dodos today. So that's sort of the sad story of the dodos. You might have noticed I put the darker wallpaper there in the back. That's just so when we have the door down and you're looking straight in from the guest area, it's going to be a little bit darker, a little bit harder to see into like the dodo's little world. So by doing that, I figured that we could make it so that you're not so obviously staring in at cages, which I try to avoid when I'm ever possible. And you can see here I'm backing up the glass again. I had a hard time finding a glass that was the right height. Looking back on it, what I probably should have done was just use a glass tank wall and then adjust it to the height I wanted, but for some reason I kind of stubbornly wanted to play around with this glass a whole lot. So you'll see here I'm going to go through a series of trying to sort of dress the glass up to look a little bit more like I wanted it. Ultimately I ended up going with something a little bit different here. But I should mention these low wooden chain link fences. They actually come from the Australia pack that you can find at the Zoo Tycoon 2 download wiki. But I do really, really recommend them because I think they look great. I've actually been wanting to use them in a zoo for a while now, and I always just kind of keep forgetting. But now that I've remembered, I'm probably going to start doing this a whole bunch. So expect to see those fences a lot in the future. And mostly because they come in a variety of sizes, colors, and they have both like chain link and glass. It's a really good pack to have, and I do recommend it. No, that's right. Yeah, and you can see like that glass fence is just a little too high for the level 1 logs and things like that. And so I think I actually end up going with not with these red ones. I do like those, but and you can see these are more of those Australian pack fences that I'm kind of trying out here, but I don't believe those ones will make it either, I'm afraid. And now, oh that's right, since I've been moving that glass back, what I'm going to end up having to do here is to move this pathway back as well. That way I'm not putting these back walls right on top. Like I said, I'm trying to suggest or give the suggestion of that this is sort of a like building guest area, but I didn't want to actually like put put doors and roofs on and everything like that. I wanted to keep it a little bit more open, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. And even more pleased that I remembered to keep up that theme we started at our entrance and put these darker black borders around our fences here. Again, if you use the plain white building set, it doesn't look all that interesting if everything is that plain white, so that's why I'm dropping in these darker railings just to make it give it a little more pop here. And you can see those kind of stick out a little bit more. They've got that railing on top. I don't think I stuck with this glass fence either. I get really pedantic here, so I do apologize. I'm trying to get the perfect fence for that viewing area. But I think that's really important because that's obviously going to be the main place you would stop if you were a guest. So it's going to take me a couple experiments here to find exactly what I want to do. And I think I end up just settling with 2 hot glass and kind of just rope it off. You can see I put that dark bar across there, and then I put in the 2 high glass, and then just to make it look a little bit more authentic, I drop in these bars on the side, these logs. We'll go ahead and put our small birches there on the side too, and that kind of makes it we're using those trees to frame it, just to make it look a little bit more like that was planned out by smart humans and not a stupid zoo tycooner like myself. And then I also wanted to reduce the size of this building just to give us a little area where our zookeepers could walk in, just so kind of hide the pathway that they would use to get in behind these doors. And I actually really like the effect of that white door next to the white fence with brown wood. It's kind of how it inverses it there. I don't know if you saw it, but we'll do it. I'll point it out again in the walkthrough. And here's another attempt of me to include multi-level buildings. I don't know why, but multi-level roofs always look a little bit better in Zoo Tycoon 2. I just think they're a little bit more interesting buildings. So I would suggest, instead of just having everything like at the same height, height 3 or whatever, if you want to give your zoo a little bit more of the interesting look, just go ahead and add in those multi-tiered roofs. I don't know why, but they have a lot of character, and they always come out looking pretty good. Alright, moving on. At this point, I think I realized I had kind of goofed up the fence here, or at least not given my dodos enough room. You'll see a lot of the adjustments here were to try to give the dodos more room. I felt like that original outline, once I started putting like the buildings in, it seemed like there was a very, very thin strip of land for the dodos to actually walk in. So I keep kind of pushing it out, just ever so slightly, to make our dodos happy. They are, after all, an extinct species. They've had it rough enough already. Let's not add to their misery if we can avoid it. And the best part, of course, about using the dodos as an exhibit in your zoo is that you get to use, and I'm pretty sure I find it here pretty quickly. Yeah, there we go. You get to use the awesome extinct statue with the dodo up top. You'll get to see a closer view later when we do the final walkthrough, of course. But I really love that statue, and I never really get to use it, particularly because I very rarely do extinct animals. So, fun for everyone involved, is what I'm saying. And I'm not sure what happened here. For some reason, the birch trees wouldn't let me put them inside those boxes there. So what I'll end up doing is using maples, and then our trusty juniper bush to kind of fill in the back there, to create a sort of a faux wall using just the plant life there. And here I'm just trying to figure out if maybe the black borders I put in was what preventing the birch, but it just seems to be a little error in the game. Fun for everyone. And so I'm just going to go here and grab another tree that I kind of love. Not the beeches, I ended up getting rid of those. And it's going to be the maple trees, as soon as I find them here. And it's totally not because I don't know where the maples is. I actually was just kind of going through looking for something. But as soon as I saw the maples there, I was like, those are the trees for me. Right. And now that that guest area is put out and we've kind of gotten the food down for the animals, I see we had a little skip there. There was a... Sorry about that, folks. There was a little bit of error in my recording. I think I got it fixed now. So, basically what I was just doing was putting down some of the plants and rocks for the dodos. I do apologize if that's the part that you're most interested in. But that footage somehow disappeared in the great blue yonder. I have no clue where it went. Fortunately, there will be a lot of landscaping still in this video to come, so you have not missed out completely. I'm going to go ahead and use that little stone path. I think I should use that more often, actually. But I thought it worked really, really well with that dodo statue, so that's why it's there. And we'll put in some trash cans and, more importantly, benches for our guest. And also, more importantly, donation boxes there in case anybody wants to give. I'm not against letting guests actually walk through the zoo. Obviously, we don't need the cash because we're in sandbox mode, but it's still kind of fun to let them go through and make sure they're appreciating all my good work. Get rid of that little leftover vestigial outline. And at this point I realized what I wanted to do sort of with the zoo layout was to create this fork in the road here, and that you could either go left or right. Yeah, whichever one was better. And I decided that I was going to kind of decorate it here and use this Chinese fountain as the base. They have this extinct statue, but it had a saber-toothed tiger, and like I said, I'm trying to focus on animals that actually existed at the same time as humans, which technically I guess some species of saber-toothed cats would have, so I guess that would have worked. But I felt it was a little bit of false advertising. I might put saber-toothed cats in, but right now that's not at the top of my priority list, so instead I decided to kind of use that Chinese fountain, and then also create, sort of extend the fountain by creating some waterfalls in the area. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do here, and use that waterfall as the thing that forces you to sort of fork your path so you can't go straight. And for some reason I had a little bit of trouble with this one. I'm not entirely sure why. I had to, for several times you'll get to see me here, I had to kind of back up and widen the amount of water going through. But fortunately it did turn out pretty well at the end, as I hope you will see here in just a moment. But I know that there are no way that I, make any mistakes that aren't on purpose. This is really just to show you the proper way to construct a waterfall, of course. You should all know that by now. I never make mistakes. That's just happy little accidents. And you see here, I'm just totally starting over completely just for your people's sake. But anyway, so I went back to using that low stone fence because I thought color-wise it kind of blended in with the type of rocks that surround the Chinese water fountain there. And it also was going to blend pretty nicely, I think, with the coastal rocks. And here it's just a matter of getting the ground straight so it doesn't look like ground is popping up through my fountain. And you can see I kind of have to blur it there, but that works pretty well. And then you put these fence around it, and I'm just going to fill it in with the coastal rocks like I mentioned before. It looks pretty much the same. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if they actually used the same palette for that. But I'm just going to fill this area with rocks and then kind of make it look like it's recessed by adding more and more waterfalls to the back, and I think that comes up with a really, really nice look here. You always kind of want to put something eye-catching for people just entering the zoo, I think. Whether it's just using a big fountain, or putting in a waterfall like this, or even just putting in an exhibit that kind of draws the eye in right away. I think that's good and very aesthetically pleasing, so I try to do that in all my zoos, and this one was no exception. This one was just a little bit more persnickety about me getting it done right for some reason. But you'll see here, as long as I just keep sort of expanding the water area, and I think I have to back it up one more and actually to get this working right. And just flatten, and then we use the wall to go back 2 instead of 1. I think that's how I eventually master it here. But yeah, we'll go ahead, and there we go. Perfect. Now I've got a waterfall there, and then I just fill in as much ground as I possibly can so I can flatten that out around the water. It looks very artificial at this time, but then you just kind of, since I've already introduced those coastal rocks, I decided I would just kind of use them to kind of flesh out the sides, and that really comes to a very nice look here. It's the reason why I decided to keep, I think it's wise actually in these Let's Plays to keep my mistakes. I know some people have commented in the past that they prefer I got rid of them for time's sake. Other people have told me that watching me make mistakes is actually one of their favorite parts, so I think it's better to keep them in just because there is sort of an educational aspect to Let's Plays on these type of games where people are just trying to learn how to do things. So I'm going to leave them in for now, unless I get a huge chorus of people telling me to just cut out all the mistakes and look super awesome. Which I can totally do. I can make myself look really, really awesome. But I think that looks pretty good, even with the mistakes in. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. And then I went ahead and just put a rail fence. I did it one off the path, so I could do something that I've been doing a lot lately, and that's use these little flower bushes. I've been using these more and more as kind of the borders. So the idea is the little Australian fence is one off the path. That gives me room for 2 layers of flowers, and then behind that we put down the juniper bushes, and it creates a really nice effect there, I think. I'm very happy with that. And you see I'm just running through here, making sure everything does look straight. All of our sight lines are good before I start plopping down dodos. And I thought the exhibit itself was a little too, again, I'm missing a word here. A little too standard. Nope, that's not the word. A little too something. It looked too samey. I'm gonna go with samey to use the big scientific word. It all looked a little too samey, so I had to just raise up the ground a little bit there and shift some stones around. I do try to make my exhibits all functional, as in the dodos can at least get from any part of it to another. That's something that I really wanted to make sure that I maintain when I try to maintain in all my exhibits. But now I'll just kind of dress up the inside here, throw some of the CRG's hay down. That's something that every Zoo Tycooner should download that mod. CRG's hay is fantastic, and it works pretty much in any exhibit. And then I might be using these guys too much lately too. That's something I'm afraid of. But I put down the medical set here just to make it look like this is something where research is done, and we have things for the zookeepers to look at and maintain. Speaking of zookeepers, we're going to put him in now. This is Keeper Kane, Lord of the Dodos. And I think I realized at this point Keeper Kane needed a door. Technically he could go into the cage and then walk out through the same hole that the dodos leave out, but I think it looks a little more realistic to have an actual zookeeper door, and since I put it on the side it wasn't very obtrusive, or at least I don't think it's very obtrusive into the actual exhibit, so I was more than happy to have it. And then just to blend the building in, even though it's a big white building, I put those like falling vines on the side. I think that does a good job of just making it feel more of a whole to the park that we've done. And at this point, just to again separate the front area from the exhibit side, I decided to put in that extinct arch, which I think just comes right with the Zoo Tycoon 2 extinct animals. So it's actually a really good looking arch, but it's much wider than the average one. For some reason they decided to make one that wasn't standard size, which I'm all for, because it lets you play around a little bit more, but it's kind of weird that they did that instead of it being something that an individual programmer did. But let's go ahead now and dump in our dodos here. And I'm going to put in a fairly sizable flock. We'll switch now to guest keeper mode. Now let's take a walk and see what we did. We'll go under that extra wide arch. And I really do like that waterfall. I might tweak it a little bit, but you can see it's fairly easy to spot our dodos, and they can walk around freely. I'm glad I did both males and females here. Sometimes I'll just put in females if they look exactly the same, but it does appear that I'm gonna guess the females are the slightly larger ones. And you can see that there, that there's one that's a different size. I guess it could be the males, but usually it's the female that's the slightly larger one if there's a sexually dimorphic species. And there's that wall of flowers and juniper bushes. I love how that came out. And now let's go into that little area that's sort of a faux building for guests. Again, just juniper bushes to kind of fill in the back. That beautiful extinct statue. And we can go right up here to the glass as a guest and get a really nice view. I don't think our building seems intrusive at all. I think I did a good job getting that in. I mean, when you look at the gate for the inside part for our dodos, all you can really see is a mound of hay, which is really good. It doesn't look like it's a cage or anything like that. We want to make it look as friendly as possible. And as we walk around here, we still have a really nice view of the dodos. In fact, it looks like one's coming over here. Take a little nest under a shade structure or something. Yeah, you're gonna take a little nap, boy. Fantastic. And then we'll just, yeah, that's about it. Let's go ahead and walk around back here, and we'll go ahead and see how a zookeeper would experience it. So they would go back down this pathway that most guests would just use to go to the toilets here. But if we go to the end, and you can see how I like these trees a lot. I do. But you can see we go through this door, and now we've kind of got this hidden pathway which leads to the actual exhibit. Well, I got some vines creeping into our building, but that's okay. We can go ahead and well, we can either go through the gate here into the actual pens, or we can go to the left here and go out the door into the main exhibit. And you can see a little dodo here who has somehow got himself stuck in a rock, which is just super bien. Muy bueno. But you can see we got a whole dodo flock. They do seem to be walking around fairly nicely. They don't have a problem with the water. That's good. And yeah, they're having a little hitbox problem, so I might move some of the rocks slightly. But I'm more or less very happy with how that turned out. Again, I do apologize for that little missing section there where I lost the footage of me putting down some of the plants and some of the rocks. I just didn't have the strength to go back and film it, I'm afraid. But that is it for episode 2. Thank you so much for joining me today on our exhibit through the recently extinct animals. Hopefully we'll be bringing back more species very soon. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to like it below. You're also encouraged to comment and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. That would be fantastic. Either way, thank you for spending your time with me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.